Hey, thanks for coming to my channel, checking out my analysis of the Arsenal Chelsea game. It was a tough watch. I before the game even started, I put my lineup out on Twitter and thought that we would match them 3-4-3. That allows us to basically each player to know their job, know who they're picking up, and just go man for man all over the field. I, as a coach, I actually play with a 3-4-3. I understand the trouble that it can cause. And so I wasn't really surprised by how much influence their wingbacks were able to have on the game. So I'm going to do a little tactical breakdown. Let's get into it. So the thing about playing with the 3-4-3 is the strength it gives you through the middle of the field. The front three for Chelsea isn't yes kind of stereotypical front three with a right forward, left forward, and centre forward. It actually looks more like two attacking midfielders, two tens playing with a centre forward in front of them. And so those two tens come very narrow. And you'll see when you watch the game back that whenever we had the ball, you'll see that the two attacking midfielders, Mount and Havertz, would always come right inside. Now, the problem with them coming right inside is it overloads our two centre midfielders with their two centre midfielders there. That becomes a 4-on-2. And so to try to balance the numbers, we end up having to either tuck Saka right in, and you'll see on especially the second goal, Saka was tucked right in, but he wasn't goal side of their midfielder, which forced Tierney to have to come a step. But then also it forces Tierney to come right over, especially as Mari wouldn't pass Lukaku over to Holding. But then at the same time, Holding's having to do a pressing job on Havertz, because he's not playing on a fullback, because he's coming inside. Their Mount, Lukaku, and Havertz are almost trying to create a 3 against 2 on our two centre backs. And so what ends up happening is those fullbacks end up being pulled right in. And when they get pulled in, the wingbacks then have a ton of space. And that's pretty much how the game went. If we'd have matched them up in their formation, then each player would have been able to go man for man with each player. So whether it's Holding on Mount, whether it's Mari on Lukaku, which just gives me shudders down my spine, to be honest, or whether it's Kieran Tierney on Havertz, their front three has a player allocated to each player, and so basically you can end up following that player if they drop into midfield, which the Mount and Havertz did very well, and that Reece James will be picked up by whoever our wingback was, and that just didn't happen. I feel like Arteta wanted to try and impose his style on them, and is a bit of a crazy decision, to be honest, because they are far stronger than we are in terms of personnel. They've got a much stronger team than we have. We've definitely added a lot of quality, but quality, inexperienced now, but quality for the future. Whereas they have been playing in their system with these players for a long time, and so we kind of just needed to just figure out about trying to impose ourselves on them and just basically see if we could stifle them and nick something like we did when we went to the Bridge last season. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on the goals. So let's start with the first goal. Lukaku, easy tapping. For the first goal, you'll see Kovacic manages to get forward facing. And earlier I spoke about a screen, having Arsenal's midfielders screen balls into Lukaku's feet, which they didn't do all game. Now, as he turns, the midfield is wide open, and there's an easy ball into Lukaku's feet. At this point, when the ball comes into his feet, you can see Xhaka has come in field and is playing in the centre midfield area, but Saka is also in field, and so Reece James is in acres of space out on the other right hand side. So Lukaku then drops the ball back into Kovacic, and when he does that, you've got Saka being drawn in towards the ball instead of trying to cover Reece James on the outside. You've then got Smith Rowe coming into the ball. The Lukaku's come deep and is surrounded by players, and so he can't receive the ball. And so the only available pass now for Chelsea is going to be to exploit the width. They've done a good job of managed to get us all kind of bunched centrally. So now can they hit the space? The ball then goes out into Reece James. It's a good first touch, and then Mari, who gets involved in a wrestling match but isn't strong enough by Lukaku, gets brushed off the ball, and the cross beat to Leno is a tap in. Again, if we had matched their system, then what you would have is Saka would know as the wing back that he's supposed to be with Reece James, and Reece James can't receive that ball, as easy and with as much time and with as much space. It's really easy. It's a very easy goal to concede, and it just has to be better. Kieran Tierney has got no chance there because he's being dragged inside by Mount. I think it is either Mount or Havertz has dragged him inside, so he's now basically having to occupy that player to stop him from running through the middle. That's basically just left an acre of space for Reece James. For the second goal, initially Arsenal do well in stopping Alonso from switching play. And the switch of play had been dangerous for us all game. Every time they did it, they were able to find the available wing back in a ton of space. Smith Rowe presses the ball, prevents it from being switched, so the ball goes back into a tight area. And you kind of think at that point, we should be able to suffocate the ball and get it back. They get a little bit of rubber the green ball down the line. It's a great play by them. At this point, Saka needs to switch on. Saka is inside the center circle, playing really centrally, and Lukaku is moving off the defense into an area centrally where he can get the ball. Now, as he's coming centrally and Mari's taking him, you would think then that Tierney would be, in a good position to be able to deal with Reece James. The problem is because of their three forwards, Havertz comes inside as well. And as he comes inside, that pulls Tierney right inside. And once Tierney's been pulled inside and Saka hasn't switched on to either drop in onto Havertz and let Kieran Tierney be spared to deal with any balls wide, but then also cover Mari, you've got Tierney in a 2v1 situation. He has to deal with the player that comes centrally because that's where the goal is. He's trying to protect the goal. And that leaves the ball to go out wide. It's well worked by Chelsea. So once the ball's played in towards Lukaku, that draws Xhaka in to try to make sure he try to intercept the ball there, and that leaves kind of Mari kind of stuck, who's come over. The ball misses Lukaku, gets into Havertz, and now there's a problem. Kieran Tierney, if he presses the ball, he knows that the ball will be popped off into the wide space for Reece James. But we've already had Lokonga pressing the ball on one side. We've had Xhaka coming across to try to cut out the ball into Lukaku. So there's no other cover. This is why Saka is so important in this build-up. Ball goes out to Reece James. To be fair, he makes no mistake with the finish. And that's it. 2-0. So I'm not. Arsenal also had a penalty claim. I'm not quite sure how this isn't called a penalty, if I'm perfectly honest. Nice slip ball through defender's legs for Saka to run onto. Now Saka is running forward onto the ball. The other player comes across Saka, and basically, as his leg comes across Saka, it trips him. You know, you could make an argument that the ball's kind of already going wide, and so Saka's not favourite for the ball, but Saka is already on the way. He looks like he's going to be getting to the ball first. In fact, he's a little bit closer to the ball, and the action of Reece James coming across into Saka, I can't see how. I mean, you know, you've made contact with a player without touching the ball. You've impeded his progress onto the ball. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, look at it. Earlier in the game, Pepe had a chance where the ball came to him and he went to go and strike the ball, but the defender got in there before he did, and Pepe kicked the back of the player's legs, and that's given us a free kick. So I don't understand why Saka's running onto a ball. James comes across and doesn't realize that Saka's kind of running there, runs into him, makes contact with his legs to stop him from being able to get onto the ball, and it not be, I don't know. It's a strange one. What we've seen though is that the referees are going to let more go. They're going to let a lot more physicality go. And you know, it's just something that we just have to deal with, and we've got to play to. So hopefully tactically you can you've seen a little bit kind of what I was watching in the game. I'm not sure why Arteta didn't change it. I do think he was basically trying to impose his style on them, because while the 4-3-3 gives you a lot of strength through the middle of the field, it does offer a lot of weaknesses in wide areas, especially if you can get in behind wing backs. So, you know, I assume that's why he went with more wider kind of players who can kind of do the winger thing. It just never worked. They were causing us way too much problem on the switches of play, and you know, it should have been corrected, especially after the first goal. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please like, please share, subscribe, and as always, come on, you Gunners.